Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, February 26th, 2024. It is my privilege to call the Groton Board of Education regular meeting to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. And would our student representative, David, please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the next portion of our agenda are comments from citizens regarding agenda items and other subjects of concern that lie within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. This is the portion of the agenda where the board welcomes comments from citizens. Each presentation should be limited to 5 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit written comments. Presentation should be related to matters pertinent to Groton. Board members will only ask questions in order to clarify the speaker's presentation and cannot respond during the comment of citizens portion of the board meeting. Citizens should make their presentations from the podium and state their names and addresses for the record. Do we have anyone here who would like to address the Board of Education? Sir?
Hey, good afternoon. Michael Whaley, 135 Charter Oak. My son's a fencer, so that's kind of where I'm going with this. I made some notes here. So I understand that each sport costs different amounts of money to outfit each student, but I think an equal and fair distribution of funds can and should be the goal. I can only speak directly to fencing, as that's the only sport that my son has participated in so far. He's doing track next. Fencing, it's an all-inclusive sport, and nobody sits the bench. Every participant, every player plays every single match. The parents are encouraging to their kids as well as other parents, and I've seen on several different occasions students helping their competition by giving advice on how to improve. And that is something that I've seen, that sportsmanship is something I've seen lacking in most other sports. Fencing, and I'm sure other sports, needs a bigger budget. We need a knowledgeable armorer. Right now we have parent volunteers, I am one of them, who are knowledgeable in electrical and mechanical repair and troubleshooting. We have others that do the best they can, but they don't have the baseline knowledge to even ask questions beyond the most basic of repairs. We need some other core equipment, and I feel that the school should pay for it instead of the minimal budget that the fencing gets. We absolutely need a fencing tester, which is around $1,000. Our supplies to maintain fencing equipment are minimal, with tons of reused parts and some new old stock blades that were created back in 2006. We need more strips and scoreboards. Right now we have to ask other schools to bring theirs because we can't support matches ourselves. Our clothing is dated. There are newer types that allow our players to unzip and cool off between bouts. And I think that the newer types will be safer for our fencers. Right now our students are drenched in sweat at the end of their bouts, so I think this should be a priority purchase as well outside of the fencing budget. I think we should also benefit from a knowledgeable female coach, as right now it is just the 2 coaches that we have, and it's really 4 separate teams, not one co-ed team it's kind of viewed as. In closing, we also need to do a feeder program to help drive growth and competitiveness for the fencing program. Having one at the middle school, I think, would help grow the sport, as we don't have really any senior fencers next year for the men's epee. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your coming out. Is there anyone else who would like to participate in public comment?
For the record, my name is Portia Bordelon, 24 Jefferson Drive. For just full disclosure, I'm an elected Groton Town Councilor. Today I'm speaking as a taxpayer, a Fitch High School graduate, a mother, a community representative, and a minority female on Black History Month, where so many underprivileged folks are feeling disenfranchised. I want to second what this gentleman had to say, as I am a mother also of fencing, and I've come before this very board asking for requests, and the cries have gone, nothing has happened as of yet. But tonight I'm here to speak about my overwhelming concern for the safety, welfare, and well-being of my community, for a properly funded budget. Let me just start with saying that, with no disrespect, as a town councilor, I'm speaking as a taxpayer, but as a person that's been elected for over 6 years, words up here have been used about people micromanaging the budget. Well, if you guys were not elected to micromanage the budget, what's the point of a Board of Education if we only had a superintendent? You individually are elected by the constituents to do the work that we ask you to do, and that involves micromanaging. First, I'd just like to say that 13% was just, it was crazy to see, and I'm very concerned for the taxpayers here, but also feel there's a middle road to properly fund our schools, but also to make sure our taxpayers can stay and afford to live here. I am very concerned at the cuts that the superintendent proposed, making our students pay for their summer school. That was proposed in our budget. Asking people who are barely getting by to come in and have to pay for summer school, to me, on any social economic level, is just downright not, I can't even use the words right now. Summer school. The other cut that was proposed by any social economic level is just, sorry? The other cut that was proposed by the superintendent was GED, English as a second language, and citizenship programs in the evening. Then it was tossed around, and this Board of Ed went back and forth, and I commend the people up here, the board members, who did oppose this cut. But then it was tossed around that let's give them bus passes. They can go to New London. They can go to Norwich. How are we not properly funding our most vulnerable in our community? How do we stand to be competitive against other towns? We can't continue to fund IB programs and all these other upper level programs and say, nope, but not here in Groton. English as a second language, you can't speak English, you can't help your kids at school, go to New London, go to Norwich. That sends a very strong message to this community directly where your ideas of these cuts should be. And it should not be on the backs of minorities and people who are trying hard to become citizens. And I ask this board, even though you corrected the change recently, just the proposed cuts in general that have come forward thus far from the board of the superintendent's cuts have been nowhere has there been any level of rigor in looking at anyone that's making higher dollar amounts. A lot of the cuts have been coming from lower levels. We have the Art Besser Fund. Why has there been no fiscally responsible plan to slowly start to cut those positions over a period of 2 or 3 years since we got them? I looked at other towns, they started cutting them. If they hired 50 people, which a lot of people didn't put all their money in hiring staff, they made sure they put it in places that they could cut, and they looked at a plan. There should have been a plan in place when you created the plan. Why has it not been slowly cut down over time? I don't know. You can't just rip the Band-Aid off and say, that's it, it's over, everyone go now. We don't need it. I'm concerned that we're not funding the achievement gaps. We need to make sure our most vulnerable students are heard. Our teachers, our staff need the support on the ground level. The cuts should go somewhere where it's not directly affecting our growth and closing achievement gaps in this town. I am majorly concerned about the lack of software. It was stated at that meeting that no one ever asked for it. No one really asked for a more detailed budget. In fact, I had a meeting with the superintendent, Jay Whiteloff, 4 years ago, up at the Board of Ed building. And we're still where we are. The town manager has stated that he asked you guys to get on board with the new software, and at that time, several years ago, you guys rejected. I looked at other towns like Brantford. They're on a software called Munis. They're transparent, they're open, they ripped apart the budget line by line. I'm all for an increase in budget to go to our students, but I'm concerned about where the line items that you're choosing to move those into what departments. It's one thing to say a 9% increase, but show me that that money is going to help those underprivileged students closing achievement gaps and not just the upper level classes. There was a beautiful article in the paper about how you guys are trying to get more minorities and diversity in the upper level classes. Are you doing that by cutting citizenship and English as a second language and GED in summer school? Is that the plan? Because that to me doesn't fit the tapestry of our community. We have to care about every student, every staff equally in this town and make sure it's properly dispersed. You hate to go back in the past but it's so important to know where we are today, and the past decisions have directly affected the Board of Ed budget as a whole, and we can do better in this town, and we should want to. We have the ability to do that, and I encourage this board to look at ways to make cuts that are not going to hit the ground level students. Looking at this, again, I went before you guys, we have a college readiness counselor that's only part-time. Why? Stonington has a lower number of students but has a full-time counselor. I've said this before. These are areas that you guys should be looking to fund and cutting other areas. Overwhelmingly, we have not seen any changes in that. We need to find ways that we can build bridges in this town and feel like the staff, the administrative is supported, and making sure a fair and equitable budget where if you're going to make cuts to lower level staff, you better make cuts other places too. It should be evenly dispersed. The hit should be equal on all levels. It shouldn't be just one level. And the pay of paras.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Thank you. And paras' salaries are deplorable, and we should be ashamed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hello, my name is Rita Volkman, 135 Dogwood Lane in Mystic. I'm here, I support everything Mrs. Borderline said, but I also want you to be aware that what's driving this outrageous budget are staffing, health care. So I propose we need a reduction in staff, not where it'll drive class sizes up, but in terms of the extra people that have been hired in the past 5 years, and there's been quite a lot. We also have to think about our administration. Do we really need 3 vice principals at our high school? Do we need 3 at our middle school? Those are the things that will help reduce the budget. And I would like you to take a look closely at the higher level classes and make sure you don't forget about those students that struggle every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Is there anyone online?
There don't appear to be anyone else online wanting to talk.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any response to comments from citizens?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out and appreciate the comments, and glad to hear from a former board member, and appreciate the insight and the observations. Thank you.
And I just want to emphasize that, as Ms. Bordelon mentioned, those proposed cuts were turned down by the board in terms of the adult education and the summer school. Those cuts were not implemented. All right, our next item is the student representative report.
Mine's kind of short, so I'm just going to go first. But Catherine Kolnaski is having their annual invention convention
Speak a
on...
little louder.
Sorry. Okay. Catherine Kolnaski is having their annual invention convention on March 1st from 9:30 to 11. So the 3rd and 5th graders have, come up with inventions and presentations to share, and they openly invite any board members or anybody that can, they want to come in and see that. Northeast Academy, their 5th grade drama club, is having their performance also on March 1st, but Thursday the 29th as well at 7 o'clock at NEA. And I believe they're doing Hansel and Gretel, I think. And then Celebrate the Arts is also being held on Thursday the 14th and Friday the 15th, which I went to NEA. I love Celebrate the Arts, so I'm really happy that they're still doing it, because I thought it was great as a student, and I've been as a middle schooler and a high schooler, and I just think it's a great experience. And then Thames River is doing a school-wide recycling project. So they're trying to get 1,000 pounds of recycled plastic material, and once they hit that 1,000 pounds, they're going to work together with some other groups to make a bench for the school, which I thought was also really cool. And they ask that if anyone wants to recycle their plastic, bring it to Thames River.
All right, and I'm going to steal the screen here for a sec. For those of you who don't know me, I'm David Hogetz. I'm the student representative from Fitch High School. And then I threw this together to, one, keep me on track and make sure I don't just stop talking about the Yankees halfway through, and the other half just to keep me on track and keep us on time here. I know there's a lot to cover. So for our highs, we have our winter sports. Our winter sports are wrapping up, culminating currently. Our indoor track team, we had multiple members, one of them my good friend who's looking to gun for the school record in the 800. We had a ton of them, our athletes represented at both the ECC Conference Championship and our state conference championship, and had multiple teams and multiple individuals place very, very well. So that was amazing to see. In terms of our fencing team, Nathan Johnson, I want to get this correct when I pronounce it, Did I say that correctly? Epi, men's ECC champ. So that was amazing. Only a sophomore, I believe, representing Fitch High School. So that was amazing to see. And then along with Elena Brookhart, who's a senior, who came in second in the women's Open Epi, which I thought was absolutely amazing to see such great representation from our student athletes. In terms of girls basketball, they're actually playing at the moment over at wow, you swing a dead cat and you're there, right over at Fitch. They're going to be playing Bristol Eastern, sorry, bad phrase. They're going to be playing Bristol Eastern for their start of their state tournament run. And then, as we all know, tomorrow night, our Fitch High School Falcons will be taking on the St. Bernards in the Division I ECC Championship of boys basketball at Mohegan Sun. I myself got myself out of work so I can go see this game and lose my voice cheering on our friends. In terms of robotics, they are in the build season for the robot. Their competition season starts March 9th. We had our school play that was put on last weekend that had tremendous turnout and events, well put together play as always, and we're looking forward to their spring production as well. Morning announcements has been a really cool thing that we've been doing throughout the past couple of months. We've been having some very, very groovy choices by our school administrative and staff to put on while we're walking to I didn't know Ms. Hodge was going to be here tonight. While we're walking into the building in the morning, and boys basketball, again, I just wanted to put a huge emphasis out there. Like, I cannot believe how amazing that it is to be playing at an actual arena like Mohegan Sun tomorrow night in front of all those people representing our school. No lows this month, but we do jump to Falcon Spotlight. My first, and I'll try to be brief as possible, with our college prep, and Ms. Alanak has been doing a superb job. I'm able to talk to a lot of the seniors, being one myself, but also reaching out to a lot of our juniors who are going to be attending, and sophomores even, who will be attending our College and Careers Fair in March. I cannot tell you, I have not had a single bad compliment about that woman since I started talking to people. Like, she has been absolutely, and I cannot put enough emphasis on this, absolutely, like, there's not a word that's more important to put attached with her name in terms of people who are very stressed in their senior year with a billion different questions. Who do you go see? Miss Alanak. 5 seconds later, I walked out relief. Feels like, all right, whew, I'm good to do this. I know, back to my day. And then also in terms of FAFSA and student aid, I know we are all well aware of the chaos that is the FAFSA form being redone this year. I myself having to go through that debacle, and I know there was an article published in The Day with a local student, Jillian Riley, being mentioned in it about the FAFSA turmoil. She has been absolutely influential with getting everybody on the right track, having these different groups come in and discuss with us how to break down step by step what this new FAFSA form is going to be looking like, and what that means in terms of us, our families, and how we're going to be paying for college, which is always a massive, massive step that we have to take as seniors. The next thing, again, didn't know Ms. Hodge was going to be here, but we had 8th grade tours happen over the past couple of weeks, and they have been absolutely smashing of a success. She doesn't know I'm saying any of this. I want to state that for the record. But I was able to talk to multiple members of administration from both our Fitch and from students, 8th grade students and administrative members of our middle school, who all said it was a flawing success. The students were able to feel much more comfortable coming in and talking and walking around with live students. A heavy emphasis of such trip for the 8th graders to walk on over and make the long old walk was to get them comfortable and ask questions. A lot of us being a tour guide, don't want to say the lead tour guide, but I did do a whole lot of talking to the rest of the tour guides. A lot of the big thing that we put an emphasis on, Ms. Hodge made sure of, was talking with them and making them feel comfortable in these halls, so that when they walk in for freshman orientation in August, they've already had a dip in the pool, and I think that it went amazing. I was able to see over that 45-minute tour each time the kids kind of come out of their shell, feel a little bit more comfortable, have an open conversation about open problems that they may have with coming to Fitch, like, oh, I'm not too sure, how do I know I'm gonna, and being able to take that down, like Ms. Allenak does for a lot of us college readiness students, bring them down, bring them back to earth, be like, it's gonna be okay, talking them through all the hard parts of, all the confusion and stuff that, we all once felt, I know I felt a couple years ago entering Fitch. So that was amazing. And then our IB prep, our full IB student comments have been amazing. Once again, it's a very, very, very hard thing to become a full diploma student. It's a very, very, it takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot out of your time, stress, a whole lot more studying goes into it than normal. And when people decide that they want to go down the full IB path, not all of them usually make it. A great deal of them drop out due to other things, other interests, but mainly being the workload. The workload has been something that you need to be gearing yourself up for starting earlier on, and feel geared to be ready to take on such challenging classes. A lot of what happens during your senior year when you have something called an internal assessment attached to each one of these IB classes that you are required to do to get that IB credit. A big thing that I've been seeing a whole lot of positives in is when you get a whole lot of these projects that are all coming in at once. I have an IB for math, but I also have an IB for bio, and I also have an IB for an IA for chem. How am I going to do these 3 massive projects over the course of my senior year? Prep coordination between subjects, that's the key. That's been the glue that's been keeping all these students together between Ms. Donovan, specifically teachers, communicating openly between each other, such as Ms. Zerberini and Mr. Panucci, being able to coordinate effectively and efficiently to their students between classes of understanding how to manage all these different pieces that have to come together. And I think that that's a very important thing to speak to, because it encourages this sense of, I can do this. This is something that I think me entering, I will be able to take on as daunting of a task as it may seem to be a full diploma student. I've been able to talk to people in the past about their experiences as well, and it isn't all golden and roses, might I assure you, but having that level of comfort knowing that you have a lot of coordination going on in the background and a whole lot of support to make sure that you are putting forth your best effort when they go to grade, looking at a ton of college credit, then there you go. And that has been overwhelmingly something that I've been hearing from a lot of those people this month. Then to the future, we have spring sports that are starting up soon. Our baseball and softball team are doing, my brother plays baseball, they've been doing indoor workouts. Our lacrosse teams, we've been having, they participate in a winter league over at Montville Indoor Sports, and I know they're doing very, very well. Then the big stressor for a lot of our student body going into this time of year, as it always is AP testing and stats. To be wary of it is to say one thing, but to be absolutely certain of it is another. I absolutely know for a fact that there's going to be an increase in both stress, an increase in anxiety, an increase in kids coming to school more tired than normally because we're in this type of time of year. And while that it may look like a challenge, I love for looking in the optimism in it, and I know that going through these things once again for all of our juniors who are going to be taking the SATs, or all of our AP students who are going to be going through the rigors that come with preparing for an AP exam, that the mental side that you were able to gain from it, and being able to be like, yes, AP US History, man, that was a tough course, but I got through that test, and I was able to put forth my best effort, or AP Gov and stuff like that. This is always a time of year where we see a whole lot of personal growth in our students, digging down and realizing, all right, like May 1st is a whole lot quicker than it seems, and March 14th or whenever they're taking the SAT this year is a whole lot quicker than it's coming up a lot quicker than they seem. So a whole lot of positive things to say on our Fitch High School body. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for our student representatives?
Thank you, both.
Not a question, just a comment on what David said about the IB program. I am a full diploma student. I've done that. I'm going through it right now. And I've had 2 different coordinators, so I had one last year, and now I have another one this year. And I think it's definitely a very different style, but with the current coordinator, he's incredible at what he does, and he's trying to kind of not necessarily rework the program, just make it easier for students. So he's gone around, he's trying to get current sophomores to do it for their junior year. And even he's had a lot of freshmen come. I'm in his CTL because I'm an IB student. I've seen so many kids come in and ask him about it, and they seem a lot more interested than they did when I was joining. So I think he does a really good job of doing that, trying to get kids interested and helping the kids who are currently in it just like finish out.
Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, we will move on to superintendent and administration reports.
As superintendent of schools, in partnership with my administrative team and this Board of Education, we have really worked hard together to prepare a responsible, rational, and efficient budget that focuses on our mission of teaching and learning. This is a budget that keeps our students at the heart and center of our work. It was really important for this board to make sure that we capture that. With exemplary instructional programs, standards-based curriculum, new legislative initiatives like Right to Read, while also taking care of our students and staff safety, security, and well-being. With ARP ESSER closeout this year, we always knew that most positions would go away and just a few would remain as needed. We first prepared a post-COVID level service budget, but after hearing the board, the town council, and the RTM Education Committee, we went back to scrutinize this budget further. And what you will see tonight is a pre-COVID, going back to before COVID, when we didn't have all of these ESSER funds, level service budget. There are many challenges this year and into the next year. We are seeing escalated inflationary costs, a new, more expensive bus contract, higher healthcare costs, numerous unfunded mandates, as well as contractual obligations that this board has agreed to. After a decade of budgets that average a 0.5% annual increase using health savings accounts and reserve, we are faced with increases in this year, but the same level services. Since the beginning of January, we've spent numerous hours during the day and into the evening working together trying to understand the FY25 budget deeply, with a focus on student and staff learning, as well as student and staff safety and well-being. We labored over the budget at the building level, program level, operations level, and line by line in the function codes. The original proposed budget began at 8.27% increase without health care. We didn't have the information altogether. When we got the information on health care, it had risen and escalated to 13.43% with the health care, followed by an 8.76, then a 9.32 with Thursday night's additions to the budget. After hearing from our many constituents on the council, RTM, and the board, we have gone back to review the ARP ESSER grant, which was initialized 4 years ago and needs to sunset. Tonight, after much reflection, we are proposing a 7.9% increase level service budget. This is responsible, rational, and efficient, that focuses on our mission of teaching and learning and keeps our students at the heart of what we do. In partnership with the board and the professional staff and leadership in this district, I'm making the recommendation for 7.9 for the FY25 budget. It's responsible, rational, and sustainable pre-COVID level service that's essential for our students and affordable to the community, and it does touch on every area of the budget, every area. Thank you very much.
And does the board have any questions? We will obviously be looking at the details of this under new business later in the meeting. If there are no questions at this time, we will continue to the Director of Finance report.
Good evening. So I'm just going to start with the
object code report, so it should be attachment number 1. So thus far, we've expended, and there it is, okay, I just wanted to get it up. Expended and or encumbered about $74.5 million. Leaves us with a balance of $6.9 million, or about 8.5%, 8.4%. This month was a little unique. We had some one-time payments. So we paid $1.1 million for our pension, our annual pension, and our workers' compensation payments. We also had a couple $100,000 or so just to finish up our encumbrances for special education tuition. And then finally, we made a $70,000 encumbrance, that is, for the replacement of the Fitch, I'm going to say water heater, it's probably boiler, but I'm wrong there. So, you put those together, and that's about half of our expenses for this month. Nothing else really out of the norm. We're going to get into utilities and health insurance in a second, so I can give you an update there. Just again, as you correlate between this year and last year, last year we had a little over $10 million at this point. But I'm just to continually remind you, we've already encumbered the full bus contract for standard buses this year, and we've encumbered all of our salaries that are predictable salaries. So that's really a big change compared to the practice that was last year.
It's safeguarding things.
Predictability.
Does anyone have any questions about the object code summary? Hearing none, we'll go on to the health insurance report.
Yep, if we can just pull up the dashboard real quick. Okay, I think you have the handout, so I'll just keep going here while we're waiting for that. So if you look up in the top right-hand corner, we actually had another good claim month for December. It was low 800s or so. That's good for us, in line with last year. So that's really 2 months in a row now that we've come down off our pace of, $1.1 million to $1.3 million a month. So that's good news for us. Nothing really new in terms of enrollment. The only thing I wanted to, I guess as we go forward now, what I want to do is kind of give you the preview is what the next few months look like. Because as we get into the spring are really our highest months. When you get into March, April, May, believe it or not, those are our highest months. So I thought I'd just give you a little preview on the next couple every month so we can start to correlate between what's happened versus what we predicted. So in our forecast for January, we're predicting $1,075,000 in terms of claims. So what we've done in the forecast is taken the last 6 months of actual and then used the 6 months of the previous year as being our most recent experience. So we should get our claims hopefully the end of this week, if not early next week, and that's our benchmark that we'll start to look at. One more thing, just to give you an idea of how quickly that escalates when you get into February, we're almost up to about $1.3 million again in terms of our expectation. So those months really start to pick up on us, but those are in our forecast, so hopefully, hopefully we'll have a glide path now that we can start to measure ourselves. If you recall the first 3 or 4 months, we really couldn't even have a forecast. We were in a sort of a heartthrob in terms of highs and lows there. So hopefully the Finance Committee on Tuesday, I believe it is, I'll have an update for you on claims. So the energy dashboard is next. I don't really want to bore you too much with what's happened this month because it's been, I've said this for 2 or 3 months in a row now, it's been right on track with last year. I mean, within a percentage point for that matter. But I added an additional exhibit this month. I think Dean had asked for this or, made a suggestion a month or 2 back to take a look at energy costs over some period of time in comparison to square footage. So not a lot of answers here yet. It's the first time we've looked at it, but I took a look at the entire year of 2023. So it doesn't follow our fiscal year, but it follows a calendar year. And if you take a look at it, I'll just start at the top. CB has the lowest utility cost on a square footage basis. $2.18.
Wow.
And then CK actually has the highest, if you think of the other end of the spectrum, at $3.78. So what I'm trying to do now is just find some benchmarkers. There is some industry standards, some school standards that we can kind of correlate ourselves to figure out, are we in the right zone, or which grouping of the schools are in the right zone? And I just need to do some homework there. But it's kind of interesting, right, because it's not, I honestly didn't expect to see Fitch as the next lowest. Not that I knew anything, but, you know, it's the second lowest at 2.25 or 2.26. So Northeast and CK, which are the two we've been talking about, are our two highest. So it kind of fits with some of the discussions we've had.
Right.
So I'll leave it at that. More homework there, but I wanted to at least give you a preview and sort of a first draft, see if we can get some eyes on it.
Question?
Yes.
A while back, it was, a couple of us up here asked for a calculation or some sort of accounting for the amount of electricity used by Northeast Academy in regards to the AC and the heat having to run at the same time to address the moisture issues.
Yep.
Did we ever get any sort of calculation on that as far as expenditures?
We did. I don't, did you bring it by chance or no? Yeah, I haven't. I can just send it to you if you like.
Please do.
I don't
Send it to
think
the whole
it-
board, please.
Yeah, and I don't think it really, at least for me, it didn't really raise any additional questions. So I thought it was something that was going to pop there, but it didn't really show me that, at least for the summer months that you were asking for.
No, I thought we were
Flip it
looking
out.
for annual costs, like as far as something comparative as far as like the usage beforehand, before the problem developed, and then after the ad hoc remedy was applied.
Okay.
Just to get a sense of how much we're spending on
Absolutely.
the electricity, because as we try to advocate for a CIP to try to remedy the HVAC situation there, it'll be good to have some comparative cost of saying, well, you know, this is how much more of a percentage more we're paying in electricity doing this ad hoc remedy.
Yeah. No,
So
I was looking at the summer months when we have, you know, a lot of the AC and a little bit of the heat having to run because of the humidity. But we can look at it. We'll look at like 2019 versus last year, something like that.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Jen and then Matthew.
Dave, just a quick question, or maybe it should be directed to Sam. Which schools fall under Groton Utilities and which fall under Eversource? I think that would probably help us determine why some schools may or may not be as high as we had originally suspected.
Yeah, Jen, how about I send that to you, because I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
or we can
I
go
know
through
some,
it
but I'm gonna
in,
guess at a few others, so I already, that's the way we organize this, so I can send that out to you.
okay, or we can go through it in
Yeah,
next
no
week.
problem.
And Matthew?
Thank you very much for the dashboards. They're very helpful. I'm very glad you instituted this. I tried to take a look at how we're doing this year, actual expenses to budget, because I've heard in the past, and it's not unique to this district, why can't you do the same thing for the same amount of money? Wonderful school, let's have a level budget in dollars. So we budgeted for this fiscal year '24. I'm looking at electricity costs. I took the first 6 months, I took half of the annual budgeted amount. Half of the annual budgeted amount is $548,500. The actual expenses in the first 6 months for electricity for the district are $787,400. So on this particular item, we're running 54.8% ahead of budget. That's a reality over which we had no control and which we could not predict at the time that the last budget was done. I did the same thing for natural gas costs. Looked at half the budgeted for this year compared to the actual expense for this year. We're up 17.7%. So I do appreciate the concern to maintain as low a budget increase as possible. We're all working on that. But this was just a very clear, it's not a label, it's a very clear dollars and cents impact of some of what we're facing. And we're facing this on so many different levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Director of Finance? If not, we will turn to the Director of Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Kilpatrick.
So we have a couple of projects that are wrapping up, and one that is just gearing up and getting ready to get started. So for those, first item is the Fitch High School LED lighting project, which they've been working on for the last couple of months.
Sam, is your mic on?
I think you just need to talk into it a little more. Oh, is this better?
Thank you, Joan.
Some people like the fact that that mic didn't work. Yeah, so I have a project that's gearing up, and I have some projects that are finishing up, and those are the items that I'll report on this evening. The first item is the Fitch High School LED lighting project that's been going on for the last couple of months. Thermal jackets have been installed on the heating pipes. Transformers, the new transformers have been installed, and the lighting is done with the exception of some high bay areas in the concourse at the high school. They'll be returning to do that at a later date. So that one's wrapping up. Also at Fitch High School, the vape detectors have been installed. We have 10 vape detectors installed at the high school, and we are awaiting IT to actually activate those. They're working with the company that those came from to activate those. And they should be up and running here very soon. Groton Middle School, the field lights at Groton Middle School, they've been tested, they're ready to go. We are just waiting for, there are going to be 3 poles that go between the softball field and the artificial turf field to light the pathway at night. And the FAA has insisted that we put a beacon on one of those poles, the center pole. So that's going to be a solar light that will be on their beacon on the center pole, and we're waiting for that to come in. Then they'll erect those poles, and we'll be done with that and ready to go. Should be ready for some spring sports anyways, providing the weather cooperates with us in the spring as well. Also at Groton Middle School, the scoreboards for those fields, for the artificial field and for the softball field, we are dealing with Sourcewell, and so we are now awaiting pricing on those scoreboards. As soon as we have that, we'll have more to report on. The solar projects at Groton Middle School and Mystic River School have been inspected. They've been tested. We had a post-installation inspection by the roofing company last week, walked all those roofs with them. There is going to be a delay in starting those up because there is a potential for some extra incentives. The program has changed a little bit since we started it, and they are now looking into those additional incentives. So we want to make sure that we get those. So we don't want to start it up until we know that we're going to get those additional incentives. So it may be a couple more weeks before we actually start those up. However, on March 19th, Groton Public Schools in the town of Groton are going to receive an award from the Connecticut Green Bank. So it's the 2023 Connecticut Green Bank Award in MAP, which is the municipal assistance program that they have for our outstanding adoption of solar on our schools' roofs. So that's on March 19th. I'll report on that after that happens, and that will be up in the Hartford area. Also, speaking of roof, the Charles Barnum roof is in the hands of the architects. The ed specs are complete. They're sent on to the architect. The architects are now scheduling meetings with both the town, and they will be scheduling meeting with the Board of Ed as well to get this thing rolling. If we get all of those meetings done in time, we're hoping that we'll be able to get that roof started this summer and completed this summer. It not only includes the roof, but it also includes the potential for solar panels on that roof, as they have been now, the state is now reimbursing for solar on roofs done at the same time. So the architect is working with our consultant on the solar portion of that project as well. And then I did get an email about late, if you don't mind, go to late buses for just a second. We've been experiencing some late buses, and I spoke with management down at STA. However, I think, well, I know that Superintendent Austin and I are actually going to meet with the upper management of STA this coming Thursday in the afternoon to express our concerns and get some more detailed answers as to why some of those tardy buses were arriving as such. And that would be my report for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions? Ian and then Adrian?
Thank you for the update on all that. Glad to hear the vape detectors are installed. What is the timeline for the IT to get up to speed and get operational?
I'm not sure. I know the technician who is working on that was out today, so I don't think it'll be long. I think it'll be a matter of a couple of days to get those up and going.
And that's the only thing that's holding up the opening of the bathrooms, like for all the bathrooms?
I'm not aware of that having anything to do with opening of bathrooms.
Maybe I could get some clarification on the superintendent on this. We spoke at the policy committee meeting briefly about this.
I'll check with the principal. Yep.
Yeah, I was under the impression that there's the vape detectors that were, the
Well,
fact that we didn't have them.
We definitely need them in there, and that
So-
will help.
The bathrooms are currently not accessible. Maybe, are you offering information?
I would just like to second and say that, yeah, that has been a very big voice of concern with our Fitch High School community. I apologize. Thank you. I'm a noob. Excuse me. That has been a voice of concern from our community here at Fitch, more so on an understanding side. We understand that these unhealthy choices that people are making are having a bigger effect on their community than I think that they have an understanding of. I think that the people who are causing this issue don't realize that they're causing more issues for others than they are just for themselves. But that has been a very big point, and I think that with the installation of this, we're going to be looking forward to being able to use all 6 bathrooms in our new wing and both of our bathrooms in our older wing, and not just 3.
Okay, so as of now, there is not full bathroom access in the
No,
high
sir.
school?
We have half of our bathrooms are operational on our new wing, and I believe it's on a day-to-day occurrence of whether or not our cafeteria bathroom, another hot spot for the illicit use of vapes, is open or not. And that's all I can say for that matter as an observer.
Appreciate the information. Thank you. Also, it's curious to know where we stand on the AED machines as far as those being installed. Is that on the list?
I don't have an answer for that at the moment.
So has it been discussed at all, or is it on the radar anywhere?
It is on the radar. We're trying to figure out how to pay for that.
Okay.
We know how many. We've done a research to figure out how many we need.
Was there a request put in for that in the budget? I didn't see any requests for that.
We're trying to get them in here, get them started here before this year is over, so that's what we're working on.
Okay. Is there any sort of grant funding that could?
We're looking into that.
Well, the other question I have has more to do with the attendance zone, so I'm not sure if we're going to have an opportunity to talk about that tonight.
For the,
Well, a while back, we discussed a transplant map. We're supposed to see a map
That
representing
has
the
not been
transplants.
completed yet. They're working on that.
Okay.
It's going through the process.
All right. Is there a timeline on like when that could be done?
I'd have to find out from staff what the timeline is. We want to get it done, though, soon, once kids are enrolling,
Okay.
so in the spring.
I look forward to seeing that information.
I believe it's Adrian and then Jen.
All right, my question's just in regards to lighting at night when we're not using buildings or property. Do we dim the lights or turn out lights to a minimum level for safety and security at nighttime? Is that something that's reviewed, especially as new things are coming online?
Our electricians are still working on shutting those lights down. I know if you go by the middle school, they're pretty bright, and the other two new schools are pretty bright at night, and they're still trying to figure out how to get that down to a lower level. The custodians can't do it. It's within the computer program that they have to do that, so they're working on that presently.
All right, and then as far as exterior lighting, do we shut any parking lights down at night or entry? I mean, are they all necessary? It's partially spurred by there was an
They do
article
go
in the paper
down
over the
after,
weekend.
they go down after our staff is there. Custodians leave about 10:30 at night in most of the schools, so they're on till about 11 o'clock, and then they come back on in the early morning.
All right.
So they should be off for a few hours at nighttime.
All right.
And Jen?
I just had a question, or actually a statement, in regards to the STA and the late buses in the morning. I don't know if you're meeting with them, when you meet with them, and I don't know how the contract is structured, where they should get a penalty fee, and I don't know if that's built into the contract or not, for not getting our students in on time. That's disruptive to their learning. If some of those kids need breakfast in the morning, that could impact that. It's disruptive to the parents who have to wait to make sure that their children are coming into school. So this is not just an issue of being late. They need to think of the consequences and the impact to our families. So as you're meeting with STA, I really want you guys to push that.
We will.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we all agree that it's unacceptable, and I expressed to the upper management, even before they come to this meeting on Thursday, that the ultimate penalty will be not continuing with the contract when this one is up.
Thank you.
Jay, one more?
Yes.
All right, just another note I remembered. The gym doors, the doors of the school by the gym area. During one of the, shortly after one of the driving rain storms that we had, there was a fencing match, and going through those doors, I noticed a lot of water had intruded into the foyer, and then also was transmitting into the actual school area, in between the double doors.
Are you talking about the foyer between the two gyms, or at the bottom of the ramp at the back of the school?
I would say between the two gyms, the one that you would enter to go in, and then you turn left, there's one gym there, or you turn right, and there's a gym on your left and a gym on your right.
Yeah, I'll have my door guy take a
Yeah.
look at that, but
I did take some pictures of it. It looked like the skirts at the bottom, the rubbers had degraded to a point where they're no longer there.
the seals may have to be done again. I know
Yeah.
we have a problem with the doors at the bottom of the ramp by the culinary arts area. That rain always drives in
Okay.
from that side of the building often. So I know they're aware of a problem there that they're going to fix, but I'll have them check that other foyer as well.
All right, appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, if there are no other questions, thank you, Sam. Next, we have committee reports. Mr. Shulman, would you like to report on policy?
Thank you. Policy Committee met earlier this month. We will be having 2 second readings this evening, and we have a couple of first readings that are teed up, but I'm not sure if we'll get to them tonight because we have a few other things on our plate. Just wanted to give you an update on policy. Susan has done some research and found that there are almost 200 worth of policies that have not been reviewed since their initial passage, a few dating back to the late 70s. We are going to try to get to all, however many they are, this year. That's not a promise, that's an aspiration, but we're going to work at it very seriously. We get policies sent to us because of changes in state and federal regulation, because something comes to Susan's attention that she brings to the committee that either needs an amendment or a new policy. In addition, some of the committee members have requested or are requesting some review of existing policies. And then there's also the interest from some committee members of having brand new policies. So the process we're going to go through on these is when member X proposes something, we will have a initial conversation, a conceptual conversation as a policy committee. If we want to go forward with it, we will then bring it to the committee of the whole to see if there is some resonance, because if the committee of the whole is not at all interested, why do all the work? Assuming the committee of the whole thinks that it's worth pursuing, not guaranteeing it, but pursuing, the committee will then draft a draft policy for the board's full consideration. That's it, and we have a lot of work and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Curriculum. Andre.
That's not that yet. We're going to be meeting in March, and we're going to be looking at the science of reading.
Finance and facilities, Jen.
Pinch hitting for Dean, who is the chair, but our committee met on February 6th. The director of building and grounds, Sam, who just spoke, met, and he mentioned to the committee that Fussin O'Neill, an environmental engineering firm, was hired to perform a comprehensive study of Northeast Academy and Catherine Kolonowski regarding the excessive humidity at those schools. That consulting firm provided a long-term and a short-term solution. So that's been discussed at some time as well. He also mentioned that there was property damage to the Board of Education snowplow truck in approximate cost of about $30,000. Not sure if we'll probably get an update next week. Also mentioned, which he had just mentioned like a couple minutes ago, about the solar projects at Groton Middle School and Mystic River are now ready for this, basically to flip the switch. Also, previously discussed the roof and the solar panels potentially at Charles Barnum. Let's see. We have also, from the finance director who spoke at our meeting, asked for a more detailed invoice from STA. What they're doing right now is they're not providing hours in their billing cycle. So that's something that we're looking into and following. As for our next meeting, it's March 5th. So anyone's welcome to attend.
Thank you. Negotiations is not meeting. We are not currently in negotiations with any of the bargaining units. Beverly, would you like to address the latest meeting of Learn?
Thank you, Jay. I attended the Learn meeting on Thursday, February the 8th. Every year, Learn does a full audit, and the audit report was reviewed with the board. The financial statement, the federal single audit, and the state single audit were excellent. So Learn had a clean audit report. If we need help with cybersecurity, Learn has somebody on their staff that has a master's in cybersecurity. Lottery season for magnet schools are from January the 1st to March 30th. The Marine Science High School have 400 applicants from around the region. They take freshmen and sophomores. They do not take juniors, and seniors. And one concern with the Marine Magnet High School is that it's not diverse. And diversity is one of the main points in the magnet school. So they're working on trying to get that magnet school more diverse. And we also talked about the governor's budget. I don't know if you know this, Susan and Dave. They said in the governor's budget, there's no offset to towns, and it's going to be a 3% increase. And usually the offset is 42%. So that means if one bills a school district $3,300, they would only bill the school district 42% of that. But in the governor's budget, he did away with that. So we have to see how that all shakes out.
Right.
Same thing we're doing tonight with the increase in education diversity plans. We went over that and how to increase the pipeline for people of color, for educators of color. And they had some ideas on what to do with that. And as far as the teacher resident program, we have 48 graduates last year, and that is pretty good. And that is it for Learn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beverly. Next, the Town and City Council RTM Board of Ed liaison has not met. The AGSA GEA liaison met on February 22nd. The principals and teachers discussed the issues we previously discussed here tonight about some buses arriving late, and the superintendent will be looking into that and explore the remedies. There was also discussion of researching scheduling changes at the secondary level, block scheduling versus 44-minute classes. Some of these things are subject to space constraints. Groton Scholarship met on February the 8th. They brought up what David mentioned is the challenges with FAFSA in their application process. And they also extended the deadline on applications to February 16th. And they chose the readers from among their members for the application essays. Athletic Fields met, unfortunately it was at the same time as one of our special meetings on February 21st. However, I could not find any minutes or video online for it. I was told that they did not achieve a quorum. Anything from Trails?
No, there was no meeting with Trails.
No meeting from Trails, okay. Do you have a report from the library?
At the last meeting, I mentioned the Victory Garden, potential Victory Garden project between Ernie and the Groton Public Library. The librarian, Ernie, and I met together at Mary Morrison. They're very excited. Have you announced the newest grant that Ernie's got?
With the hydroponic?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Well, I don't want to take your
I think I might have
thunder.
put it in board notes, but we'll have to bring it to the RTM because it was a really special grant.
Am I allowed to mention it yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
It came through.
So my understanding is last summer when Norwich had some challenges in feeding their children, Ernie stepped up and helped feed the children of Norwich as well as Groton. And the Commissioner of Agriculture came down to thank him. And Ernie trotted out his dog and pony show, and the commissioner said, you guys might be worthy. And so Ernie gave his idea about having a hydroponics trailer that would be designed to produce 4,000 heads of lettuce every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And it's gotten funded,
Yes.
though we do need the permission to accept the money. So
Yes,
that
we
hasn't
do.
happened. We do
We
need
have
the
to go
permission.
through the process, that's right.
So I'm very excited about that for us. The Victory Garden, I'm not going to take up a lot of time tonight, but suffice to say that Jen, the librarian at Jen Mealy, I'm sorry, I should have given her full name, is already agreed to start some nutrition education programming using the kitchen at the library using grant-funded texts that Ernie got from Walmart. So we're moving ahead on that, and hope to have a lot more in the next month or two.
Thank you. The Permanent School Building Committee has not met. That is a town body, but we do send a representative when they do meet. And the State Council on Educational Opportunities for Military Children meets twice a year, and this was not one of the months that they met.
April will be next.
Okay, April will be next. And we will have, I believe, 3 members attending that in April.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
a couple things. One, the Athletic Fields Task Force, they did have a video. I did watch a video after that meeting.
Oh, okay. I couldn't find it on GMTV.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find the link for it. And they were discussing some possible proposals for some work to be done on various fields and design bids and things like that. It was nothing binding. There was no vote taken. My understanding is that that's why they chose to proceed with like sort of an informational discussion. But I will try to find that video because it was the day after the meeting
Okay.
that I saw it up on GMTV. I don't know if it was taken down or not.
Yeah, I couldn't find it today. I had intended to watch it and
Yeah.
get more information about it, but,
I haven't made contact with them yet to let them know that I'm interested in
until that meeting
Being on it.
popped up, which I hadn't even heard about, I didn't know that they were meeting. So I intend to name a representative to it for the next meeting, and maybe we can achieve a quorum,
yeah, I would like to be part of that.
I would hope.
Also, communications, did you,
It did not meet.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
We need meeting in March. Adrian?
Yeah, I would just like to ask about the discussions in the schedule. Were you talking about the middle school schedule?
Middle school and high school. Yeah,
All right.
they were.
You said block scheduling versus a 44-minute. Was that middle school predominantly? And could you, elaborate on that a little bit?
All they said is that they were discussing it, the principals and teachers amongst themselves. There was nothing none of the details were shared at that liaison meeting. But it's
All right.
something that they're thinking about internally. So,
All right. I'd be
So-
very interested to hear if there's, concerns there.
right. All right, the next item is the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Points of clarification are allowed. This will include approval of the regular meeting minutes of January 22nd and the special meeting minutes of January 29th, February 1st, February 5th, February 7th, February 12th, February 15th, and February 21st. Also, the item of acceptance of gifts, Tanger Outlets at Foxwoods has donated through its Tanger Kids Grants Program $1,187.68 to Thames River Magnet School to be used to fund decodable books for the science of reading. Tanger Outlets at Foxwoods has also donated through its Tanger Kids Grants Program $1,000 to Thames River Magnet School to be used to fund no book too big or too small. Given that, I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So,
Moved by Andrea. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Abstentions? That passes. I would like to thank Tanger Outlets at Foxwoods for its donations of $1187.68 and $1,000 to Thames River Magnet School. Moving now to
We will be
old.
sending a letter next week.
Yes, we will. Moving now to old business. Ian, would you like to read the first item? The motion for the first item.
I move to approve the policy P3250 for material fees as a second reading.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion? I know we did discuss this item. It's been through the policy committee. It was discussed at the last Board of Ed meeting. Does anyone have any other discussion?
Yes, as a member of the policy committee, one of the things that was discussed about this was the ramifications of what are material fees, and to make sure that, all instructional material, anything that's required for a class, such as ROTC uniforms and band uniforms, would be included in material fees. So there would be some adjustment to the fees that are asked of marching band members. And the superintendent had mentioned that she was going to reach out to the band director to get some clarification on how much of the $100 fee was apportioned towards uniform maintenance and access versus, food for summer camp and things like that.
She did get back to me, and some was for food, for band camp, so I'm gonna work with the administrative team just to make sure that we've looked at those costs, and the ones that are for instructional reasons we'll take care of, but if there's other things that are needed to go through the booster club or whatever, for things like band camp, we'll make sure that they are, we figured out what's what.
Was there any discussion of actual figures yet?
No, she sent me an email, telling me what it was for.
Okay, so the percentage
I do have
is-
that, and then I've just got to talk to Principal Brown.
Okay,
And we'll look at other things too, other areas that might have happened.
all right.
Yep.
And that also carries through for the ROTC uniforms? as
Yeah,
far
we've
as-
been taking care of that
Yep.
cost. Yep.
Very well, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor to approve policy P 3250, material fees as a second reading, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries. Matthew, would you like to read the motion associated with the second item?
I move we approve policy P 5141.5, suicide prevention intervention as a second reading.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Thomas.
Okay, and is there any discussion? Again, this was discussed at the last meeting. Is there any?
Yes, Mr. Chair. There was some, I'm speaking for myself as a policy committee person, but not as the chair of the policy committee. This is representing my own personal views. There was some respectful disagreement among policy committee members concerning the use of plural pronouns associated with single nouns. Examples in the document include their or themselves instead of his, her. The intent of such use, as raised by the proponents, is that not all students identify as binary, that respect for diversity requires the use of alternative language forms. I agree that we need to respect diversity. I disagree that doing so requires eviscerating language structures that bring consistency to written and oral communications, particularly when employed by an educational institution such as ours. We respect diversity and individual rights by using pronouns that reflect an individual's self-identification. At the same time, the structure of language, at least the English language, does not have a non-gendered third-person singular pronoun. English requires accord between singular and plural, both between nouns and verbs, and with their subordinate adjectives and pronouns. Trends come and go. Some trends are sustained, others are not sustained. Just look at the way reading has been taught in Groton over the past 50 years and how it is shifting once again as we speak. Fortunately, English has enough flexibility to do this. Instead of himself, herself, one can use oneself. Instead of the school principal or his, her designee, we can use the school principal, parenthesis, or designee. As long as we respect a student's right to be addressed according to one's self-identity, we have no right to revise the language. Our mission must continue to be teaching and learning within the constructs of correct usage, or we fail our mission. The English language is strong enough to do both. I request inclusion of this statement in the minutes of tonight's meeting And Joan, I have an electronic copy available for you.
She'll appreciate that.
No doubt.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
I'll recognize Andrea and then Ian.
I think the concentration on that particular subject came from me, because I'm an advocate of having consistency in the policy, in anything that comes out of our district. And it really didn't originate with respect for identification. It came from my English grammar concern. And that is, instead of having he, she, slash, if you start the sentence with, if a student does whatever, then you're gonna wind up with he, she's, slash. If you say, if students do whatever, then you can say they or their, and it will be consistent with the English language. And I understand also that we don't say thee and thou, and we don't use much of the language is constantly changing and constantly moving, and we have to accept that. But it is our policy manual, and it should reflect grammar that is acceptable at this time. So that was that's where it came from wanting to just be consistent with plurals. That's it. There was no argument that attached to it except for proper grammar. Just so you know.
Ian.
I would respectfully disagree with my colleagues on the variance that's being attached to the use of the singular use of the word they. You know, for one, it's been accepted by APA and MLA and various other formal paper formats. Second, you know, part of the inspiration in doing that was not just to address the gender binary concerns, but it was also a matter of just a cleaner read. And I would refer to E.B. Strunk and White's Elements of Style, where the central mantra is avoid needless words. And, you know, it is commonplace, it has been commonplace in the English language far beyond the awareness of a non-binary approach to gender. And I would submit for the simple example that we have often used the word they or their in the singular context in basically just saying, you know, if you walk into a room and you see a jacket on a chair, you say, oh, somebody left their jacket here. You don't know whose jacket it is, but you can be pretty sure that it belongs to just one person. So that's an example of the singular use of the word they and their. So it is correct, it's been grammatically correct for quite some time. It's very subtle, and so it slips under the radar a lot, but you know, it's not just a matter of addressing the non-binary gender thing, but it is also just a cleaner way to approach the language. You know, it flows. It avoids needless words to construct various other ways of approaching that situation. So I would refer to Strunk and White as much as anything else to defend that.
I would say I'm sure my colleague and I agree that agreeable people can disagree agreeably. We'll let the vote, and whatever happens, we'll all live with it. I think we can live with our language as it is. Where there is a need for an unavoidable need to do this, fine. This is not an unavoidable need. The English language is flexible enough to cover this policy and our other policies. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we are going to vote to approve policy P5141.5.
I apologize. I should have made a motion to amend this, to delete their and themselves and include oneself, or what did I have for the other word? Bless my soul. to stick with traditional English language usage.
So you are looking to amend, is there a second?
Second.
Point of parliamentary procedure.
Mhm.
In order to make this amendment, we would have, this is a second read on this document,
Yes.
and we had the same conversation at the first read, and it passed with, as written, with the singular use of the word "they." So in order to properly consider this amendment, I believe we would have to actually articulate where it would be sliced and diced and what actual word. If we're going to pass a second read, it has to be as is going into the policy manual.
Mr. Chair, when we came to the vote in the policy committee, I indicated that I would not try to be obstructionist and I would support this coming to the full board. But all the members of the committee were very well aware of my objection and I was going to bring it here. If the parliamentary procedure is correct and I am incorrect, I will withdraw my motion and ask to send this back to the policy committee to give me a chance to follow the correct procedure. I just don't want to be buffaloed on this. I was very clear.
All right, so you are,
If Ian's parliamentary observation is accurate, I'll accept his face value unless somebody else can clarify. Joan can clarify it, that's fine, otherwise I'll accept what Ian says is face value. I ask that we return this to the committee.
I'm sorry, is that?
Kathy, if you're waiting for me to say something, I can barely understand you.
Well, that may be because I kept the microphone away from my face. My apologies, Joan.
Thank
Joan, Ian, correct me if I'm misstating anything you're saying, okay? Ian has suggested that in order to make a change in the second reading, I would need to have brought up the document with the elisions and additions in written form beforehand. Have I understood you correctly?
That's my understanding, or you can do it, in real time now, but we would need something, I believe, this is my understanding of the procedure when it comes to policy and procedure, is that it has to be clearly written, because we could be voting on removing one sentence, and so we'd have to draw that line through that sentence. But in this case, you're making a motion to rephrase and replace a series of
Fine.
words that would
So,
also require a rephrasing.
I can do that now, but I can only give it to you orally. I don't have the text in front of me, though I can have it this evening. Where it says himself or herself, we would include oneself. Where it says, what was the other one we had in here? If this is not of urgency tonight, we have other fish to fry tonight. Can we just send this back to committee and we just not waste any more time tonight? If you consider it urgent to fill it tonight, I'll do it now, but I have no way.
so you would like to withdraw your motion?
I'd like to I would withdraw my motion and make another motion that we refer this back to committee.
Okay. Unless there's any objection, is there a second to sending this back to committee?
Second.
All in favor of sending this policy back to committee, please indicate by saying aye. One, two, three, four. Okay.
Jay, who
Um,
second?
Who seconded it? Rob Mead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm
Right.
opposed.
And,
I'm opposed as well.
okay, so 2 opposed, and any abstentions? All right, so
Did
that,
Beverly vote?
Jay, I'm opposed.
okay.
And who opposed after you, Jay, please?
So that was Ian, Adrian,
Thank you.
and Beverly are opposed.
Thank you.
All right, so that motion passes to send it back to committee. The next item, under new business, I know we had discussed postponing these at a previous meeting. Does anyone wish to make a motion on postponement, or?
Actually, I've reconsidered that.
Okay.
I'm not prepared to do that. I think we should carry on.
Okay. All right, so, let's see. Jen, would you like to read the motion under new business for item number 1?
Discussion and possible action regarding bylaw 9324, meeting conduct and parliamentary procedures as first reading, attachment 14.
Okay, so the motion is to approve bylaw 9324, meeting conduct and parliamentary procedure as the first reading. Do I have a second?
Second, Thomas.
All right, and do we have any discussion on this?
I thought we were going to defer this.
No one made a motion to do that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if this is appropriate, I would like to make a motion that this item be tabled until our next regular meeting, and I'll make the same motion later on. If there's a second, I'll make the same motion on the next 2 items. The purpose of this motion being simply that we have so much on our plate, and there's nothing here of such urgence that we need to divert our conversation from the budget.
All right, is there a second to defer?
Second.
Okay. So that is to defer it to our next regular meeting, to a date certain.
To a date certain, our next regular meeting.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Jake. Who seconded that?
That was Andrea.
Thank you.
All right, so all in favor of the motion to defer this to the next regular meeting?
Are we going to have a discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
I'm not in favor of postponing this one, and we are, to be clear, the language, are we postponing or tabling? They have 2 different functions.
Which would you prefer?
I believe postpone to a time definite would be the better way to phrase it.
May I amend my motion that it's postponed to a time definite being our next regularly scheduled board meeting? Is that satisfactory, Ian?
Yes.
Thank you.
And to continue my comments, not in favor of postponing. This one is pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of tuning up the language in the middle section of policy of P 9324 has to do with meeting conduct, parliamentary procedures. It has to do with recording, broadcasting, or photographing meetings. And basically, I was the one who made this referral to the policy committee, and it was a matter of just getting the policy to more closely match the language that's in the state law regarding access to public meetings and access to recording public meetings. The previous policy, I felt, was a little exclusive in the sense that it limited people, limited recording and broadcasting only to people who identified as media, which is actually contrary to state law. State law says that you're not required to identify yourself to attend a public meeting, and also that anyone can record public meetings and broadcast public meetings by whatever means they choose, as long as they're not disrupting the meeting. So you can see in this package, you can see the red ink, everything. I just lined out everything of the old policy and just dropped in a modified version of what I found in the state law, CGS section 1-226 and 225, which if you refer to the policy committee meeting minutes, you'll see my full comments in there, a letter that I sent to the committee and to the whole board explaining my rationale. Again, I think this is pretty straightforward. It's really not that controversial. So it's something we can kind of move forward with in fairly quick order, I believe.
Any other discussion? So the motion on the floor is to postpone.
Jay?
Yes.
I had my hand up, but I
I'm
guess
sorry.
you don't see it.
Yep, go ahead.
That's okay. I'm in agreement with Ian. I think the policy is pretty straightforward, and I think we should talk about it and move it forward and let it come back for a second reading.
Thank you, Bev. I agree with that. I think that we're actually spending more time discussing the postponement than voting on the policy. So
I'll withdraw my motion, and we can go on to the vote on the policy.
okay. And do you agree to the
I just
Withdrawal?
wanted to move this
Okay.
along.
Fair enough. All right, so the motion on the floor is to approve bylaw 9324, meeting conduct and parliamentary procedure as a first reading. Is there any discussion about that motion?
There was unanimous support for it by all the committee members.
Okay, so that was reported out with unanimous support. All right, so if there is no further discussion, all those in favor to approve bylaw 9324, meeting conduct and parliamentary procedures as a first reading, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Next, Rob, would you be willing to read the motion for item number 2?
Motion to approve policy P3240, tuition fees as a first reading.
Do I have a second?
Second, Thomas.
Okay, and any discussion on this motion?
Again, this is just a pretty straightforward tuning up from my understanding. This was not my referral. I think this came from the superintendent's list of revisions. Yeah, it was last adopted in 1979, so. This is just a necessary update. And again, it's pretty pro forma compared to like what's out there and what's, you know, the quote-unquote industry standard.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Every 44 years, we need to look at them.
All right. So, hearing no other discussion, all of those in favor to approve policy P3240, tuition fees as a first reading, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That passes. And, let's see, Ian, would you be willing to read the motion attached to item number 3?
I move to approve policy P5112, ages of attendance, as a first reading.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Can I just add something? It's come to my attention that in legislation, there's a little pushback about the age. So parents, I think, are really struggling with this. So I think there's something up in legislation about maybe postponing this for a year. We can go ahead and go with this, but we might have to come back to it should that happen. So with a lot of legislation, we're hearing some things are delayed or, you know, they're second guessing some of these things that they put into place. So I just wanted to let you know that's the update that I've heard.
Okay. With that caveat,
Sorry,
Yes,
one
go
question.
ahead. Mhm.
So the current legislation, though, as it stands, requires
Right.
this
At this
to be
point,
passed.
but then there's additional legislation happening to give it a wait time, like another year. So it's up to the governor, I think.
So it's being discussed, but there's not really a consensus on one side or the other. if
I
it's
haven't
gonna
heard that
change.
anything has
All right.
been affirmative, so I'm just saying that we're paying attention to it, because it
Alright.
really matters. We need to know, because they're coming, those kindergartners, or soon.
things are in flux at the
Yeah.
state level. I'm shocked. All right, so, is there any other discussion?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, in my opinion, like, I think I would prefer to move forward with passing the first reading and then just monitor the situation.
can do that.
And if there's any need for revision at some point, you know, we can always bring it back up.
Yep.
Put it to the policy committee and do a quick, like, couple of sentence adjustment for whatever, to accommodate whatever it is. Because if it's a matter of time of implementation, that could probably be accomplished with just adding a sentence or changing a few key words at some point.
And it seems to me, again, because this is a first reading, it doesn't become final tonight. We may actually hear before you bring it up again.
And it also has the age 22 for special education completing the year, which is already legislated, so it does have that other piece to it, too.
Okay. All right, so unless there's any other discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve policy 5112, ages of attendance as a first reading, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? So that passes. Adrian, would you be willing to read the motion for item 4?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion in regarding to the authorization of Groton Public Schools to file the Increase Educator Diversity Plan with the Connecticut State Department of Education, attachment 17.
And do I hear a second?
Second, Thomas.
All right, so.
I have Lori Lapine here who can explain this, and it was something Beverly brought up to our attention, that this is something that's required by the state, and just to record what we're doing on our diversity plans. So do you want to speak to that, Lori?
Good evening. So I'll certainly field any questions that you may have. I provided the document for you to look over. I want to say about a year ago, the state passed new legislative requirements requiring that every Board of Education in the state file an increasing educator diversity plan. That went into effect July 1st, 2024, and we have to file the plan during the 23-24 school year. They provided a very prescriptive format in which to develop the plan, how to approach the development of the plan. We've been doing this work in district for almost 10 years now, but this plan is representative of our most current body of work in this area. So if anybody has any questions.
We work with the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion team to construct this.
Yeah. So at this point, we just need the board's authorization to file the plan with the state. We'll continue to be a evolution, but this is the document that we'll be filing at this time.
Question.
Yes.
If over time, after we implement this, we notice there's some refinement needed, what is the process of refining this plan?
We can refine it internally anytime that we would like. The state has not indicated a requirement to refile with them. They've only indicated the initial filing at this point in time. So they have no future requirements to file revisions as of right now. But we can certainly refine the document internally, and we'll continue to do so as we have the last, 9 to 10 years. Yeah.
Would we be able to get some clarification from the state that if we do revise it in the future, that whether or not we should?
Sure, sure.
They may not have addressed that issue. They may not be thinking that far ahead.
Yeah, yeah, we can absolutely inquire.
This might be a topic, too, that we can bring to a COW in the future, so you can learn more about it, because there is some really good work happening in the district around this.
Gee. I enthusiastically support adoption of this evening. I spent a couple of hours reading it over, and I have some clarifying questions, which I'm not going to get into tonight. We need to do the budget, but I'll bring this over to you, and I think if you could respond to them when you come to the COW, that'll be fine.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Matthew.
And I'll send a copy of this to all of the members.
Do we have any other discussion about the increasing educator diversity plan? This will be filed. Yes, Rob.
Being a part of a certain educational institution in Harvard, I've seen how the other side of this looks. Both sides, I know there's good intentions. However, seeing the fallout and how it's affected community members around me, I will be voting to abstain because I just don't want to put another community through that either way, whichever side of the coin you're on.
Are there any other? Yes, Jen.
I totally support what you're doing. And there's just one or two items that I too want to review. I don't have prepared notes like Matthew, but I can send them to you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. I'll be happy to share them with the committee.
Great, thank you.
Jay?
Yes.
One more thing. Actually, now I'm reflecting on this a little bit more. I'm recalling I attended the Black History Month celebration in Mystic, and afterwards there was an event, a discussion panel hosted by More Than Words, the group that former Superintendent Mike Grenier started. or was involved with. I'm not clear on the history of how it came to be. But long story short, one of the resounding comments that came from that panel of is minority students was that they feel the need to see more minority teachers, in particular in teaching like African American studies and classes like that, but also just across the board in general. So, you know, I think that group, again, and that was one of many impressive comments that I took in from that event. I was very thankful for the opportunity. So I am going to vote in favor of this, and I definitely will do more of a deeper dive on it, and I would like to open up a line of dialogue in regards to this in ways that we can very assertively, you know, move in this direction, and also, like, you know, how we can also maybe work with that group more than words in other arenas, such as the curriculum committee, in ways to better diversify the whole approach to education in this district. Thank you.
Beverly?
Lori, is there a dollar amount attached to this plan?
No, there is not.
Okay, because I see in the plan you say offer scholarships. And so how are you going to offer scholarships?
Anything that's written into the current plan is included in the current budget proposal.
Okay. All right.
And I would just like to thank the DEI committee and the DEI Recruitment, Hiring, and Retention Committee. I see Ms. Carmita Hodges here tonight. I know that Jamal Davis has been involved. And we've been talking for a long time as a board about how important it is that we move our faculty in a direction of diversity that matches the diversity of our students. And this is something that the district has committed to long before the state required this plan to be filed. And there's been a commitment toward that. But I do wholeheartedly agree that this be filed, and I'm sure it will be a living document as we continue to find ways to increase diversity in the district.
That's right.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Just one quick question.
We're going to devote an entire COW to this. Am I understanding that correctly?
We can certainly bring it to COW.
We can bring it to a
Yep.
COW.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I for one would definitely appreciate a full presentation with a Q&A
Yep.
type
I think that's a
approach
great
to
idea.
fully
Say
understand.
it's normally on the, I think, November agenda,
Yeah,
but we can
we've
move
done
it
this
up.
before,
Yeah, we
right?
can move it up if that's the will of the board. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up to follow Bev's question there. The answer was that whatever is in here for monetary obligations is already in the budget. What is it? Where is it in the budget, and how much is the amount that we're allocating for scholarships?
The scholarships were $500 per student, and I think they had a cap of either 2 or 3. Yeah,
Okay.
at the high school. Right.
And that's still in the budget?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no further comments, the motion on the floor is to approve the authorization of Groton Public Schools to file the Increasing Educator Diversity Plan with the State of Connecticut Department of Education. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention. And so that motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone that was involved with writing this plan and will be involved with carrying it out. All right, the next item, Beverly, would you like to read the motion for item number 5?
Okay. I make a motion to approve the FY25 budget in the amount of $87,958,484, which is a 7.91% increase over the FY24 budget. So moved.
Seconded by Andrea. And is there any discussion?
Yes. Sorry, are you going first?
No, you can go.
Okay. So, I'm sure, as is evident to anyone that's been tracking the workshops, that I've not been happy or satisfied in a lot of areas as far as how this budget process has gone this year. Having come from the RTM, I do have a good bit of experience with budgets, and I have to say that, historically, in my time on the RTM, myself and a few other members there often commiserated on the slim volume we were presented. The Board of Ed budget is typically about this thick. Sometimes it's even thinner. The town budget is this thick, with a fully articulated binder of chapters and sections and department codes. For clarity's sake, this represents 35% on average of the town's spending. This represents 65%. So I finally got an up-close and personal view of the budget process here on the Board of Ed, and I find it lacking in clarity and detail, and just a clear procedure on how to review budget items and then vote on numbers as we go through the budget. So I am going to vote in opposition to this budget. And I have a prepared statement that I will file and will become part of the minutes. So I'll just kind of skim through it real quick. First and foremost, it should be known that I'm a certified teacher for GED and credit diploma programs, as well as English for grades 7 through 12 and middle school math. I also hold a master's degree in special education, and I'm a parent of students who attended Groton Public Schools, and I am a staunch advocate for the public school systems as a means of building a firm foundation of well-educated, well-rounded young adults. I'm voting in opposition to this budget to highlight the procedural and philosophical problems that have produced the numbers in the package that is on the floor tonight. I'm voting in opposition to this budget to highlight the fact that, as discussed in our deliberations during the preceding workshop sessions and possibly the meeting tonight, the numbers in this proposed package have not actually been fully approved by the board, but rather they are being put forward as a placeholder to satisfy the requirements of the town charter that the Board of Education submit something to the town manager by February 28th of any given year. I am voting in opposition to this budget to highlight the fact that, as noted by many board members in different ways during the preceding workshop sessions, the work is not yet done. The vote tonight is intended to satisfy the needs of the charter while also buying the board more time to continue to work the numbers, to find further information, to make further adjustments, and develop a budget that can be fully approved by the board. To be more specific, there are aspects to this year's budget process that I find to be highly problematic, and therefore justifies my vote in opposition as a symbolic protest to the following policy and procedural failures. We had procedural difficulties in the review process. There's no clearly stated calendar for presentation, deliberation, or decisions to be made. The budget package presented in January was incomplete from the start, and ever since there has been insufficient information provided and an apparent resistance to providing details to answer a number of board members' inquiries, resulting in at least one or more members possibly filing FOI requests to get the information. The superintendent's initial proposed budget and subsequent proposed adjustments present a disproportionate approach to cuts being made with staff, students, and the most vulnerable bearing the biggest impacts versus the minimal to no impacts on administrative costs and professional services. Some of the superintendent's proposed cuts would have resulted in having students pay for summer school and canceling adult education, GED, and ESL classes at Groton facilities. Thankfully, the board voted to rescind those cuts, as well as adding funds for financial software upgrades and funding for future state-mandated required literacy curriculum based on the science of reading, which was not initially included in the superintendent's budget. Despite repeated requests, there has been no documented information on consultants. Despite repeated requests, there has been no clear answer to the number of board members asking what students and staff supports will be displaced by the superintendent's proposed usage of grant funding to patch together coverage for other budget shortfalls. There are missing and late audit items that create an uncertainty in these current numbers as a starting point for any adjustments, as well as further uncertainty in what obligations still need to be settled. These continued delays may yet still result in unnecessary and unaffordable penalty fees. It is highly problematic that the annual audit was not delivered on time, despite the required information being relatively the same year after year. It is problematic that despite having multiple assistants in the financial department and the same superintendent and assistant superintendent, the administration failed to fulfill the required duties of the financial office for the short duration of time that existed between the departure of the previous financial director and the arrival of the current one. Additionally, the breakdown in communication and fulfillment of annual obligations is more troubling when considering that the overall number of years of experience that existed with the previous board and the superintendent. Why was there not a better plan in place for the change in financial directors? I am troubled by the revelation that the overdue annual audit items are being reconciled in great part by using the remaining Department of Defense grant funds. Are these transfers coming at the cost of funding for other areas that would be related to direct student or staff support? Had the reconciliation process not been late or in danger of imminent fee-laden violations, would the money have come from this grant or would have come from other areas? It is also problematic that there's been a lack of meaningful input from the community prior to or in the midst of these board workshop sessions. Typically, there's always been a public hearing combined with a joint budget presentation meeting of the RTM, Education Committee, Town Council, and Board of Education. This year, that did not happen due to what was reported as a failure to properly post a notice. This should be considered inexcusable for a hearing that happens on an annual basis. There's also been some contention and a lack of clarity on the authority of the Board of Education. The chair and the board's attorney should be able to provide clear guidance on what exactly is allowable under the law and make sure that deliberations are properly framed in a productive area of discussion. Often, over the preceding workshops, it seems the board has spent more time debating whether it can do something rather than discussing what the body has the will to do. This is not productive and must be corrected before we can continue to refine the numbers. What the Board of Education is able to do legally should be a settled matter of combined considerations of state law, contracted definitions of roles, responsibilities, job descriptions, articulated duties, and standing Board of Ed policy and procedure. These parameters should be a matter of defined policy and procedure, publicly disclosed and understood by all Board of Ed members and staff. And also, it's been problematic as far as like the sudden, the seemingly lack of foresight regarding the ARP ESSER grant funding ending, anticipated what should have been clearly anticipated increases in healthcare costs, leading to that first big surprise budget that was revealed on the 12th. And then the OPEB obligations and also the contracted increases in the SDA bus contract were all either known factors or could have been anticipated better in the initial budget outlay. So for those reasons, I will be voting to oppose as a means of registering my protest to the process and hoping that we will continue the work after tonight's vote. Thank you.
Jen, and then Andrea.
I just wanted to state my concern, like, if you've been watching the workshops that are Besser, as a commitment that we made to the community, although I was not part of the board at that time, but to town council, RTM, and more importantly, the taxpayers, that Art Besser is removed from the fiscal year 25 budget. So Susan, making that change, I totally appreciate that you're doing that, because that would have been a great failure on this board not committing to that and fulfilling like what we promised. In that light, I just want to confirm that the 2.2 million associated with Art Besser is removed. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to confirm that. Although this is not the most ideal budget number that or percentage that we have going forward to the town, I know that your team has some non-staffing related items that we've been discussing in the workshops that I would like to reevaluate. But for us going down to zero as a no vote tonight, which would be detrimental to the district, I am going to support this with the knowledge that by the time we present this to the town council, that there's going to be further reductions. I don't know how much that's going to be. That is hopefully something that we can continue to work on.
Andrea.
Okay. I want to say that, in my view, the representation of the superintendent and her staff is most inaccurate. She and her staff indeed have worked diligently to prepare this budget in a way that we all understand it, and in a way that is most responsible. Not only did she accomplish that, but in the end, she has accomplished a reduction in every area that could be so worked upon. So I'm hoping that we will continue to support the superintendent. She has the children at heart. I can tell that from every decision she put forward. So I just want to say that I'm hoping that we can move forward in a way that does not, this is a harsh word, but it's true in my view, and that is in a way that does not resemble a witch hunt. That's all I have to say.
Are there any other comments or discussion? Rob and then Adrian.
I would just like to, first and foremost, thank the superintendent, the director of finance, and director of building and grounds. You have all been integral, the vice superintendent as well. You have all been integral in this process. We can see all the effort that you've put in, and I appreciate and respect every single one of you for doing all of that work. So, thank you.
Adrian.
Yeah, I came into this meeting supporting the idea that we were going to pass the budget that we had in our hands Friday night. And now I have a budget in front of me that's reducing, that we got by email a couple of hours ago, that's reducing 34 positions, 34 primarily lower paid positions, but another teacher. In getting this right now, I mean, it's hard to make a decision when you can't think about it over time or sleep on it. I mean, I can make a comment here that, like, we're reducing a teacher, the number is max teacher salary. Clearly, if it's a retiring teacher, I'm assuming, clearly that's not a $100,000 credit, because when we hire teachers, they're starting teacher salaries or thereabout. I have to assume that most of the time when we hire teachers, they start at a lower rate than the max salary. So I don't see how that number is accurate And that happened at 6.5 other teacher positions. So I just have a fundamental problem with not being able to think about things and question things in a reasonable amount of time. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, we have we're losing 10 aides, and quite honestly, I don't know exactly what they do, but I'm assuming that they spend their entire day interacting with kids. They are relatively inexpensive compared to other salaries. I would like to have some discussion on that. And I agree that we will have discussion, but we just took a lot of money and we're committing to make a huge cut without even thinking about it, without having time to think about that number. I agree that a number near 8% may be realistic, maybe lower, it might be a little bit higher. I honestly don't know. I don't feel like we've had enough discussion on that to come to that number. But I feel like having one number to think about my decision over the weekend and then coming in on Monday afternoon and getting a number that is completely different, not just a number, 34 positions, 34 people that work for our district, that support our kids and what we're trying to do in this community. And I honestly, I told you that like last week, I shouldn't say I told you that, I personally felt like I could support the budget, and I feel differently now because I just feel that the rug was pulled out from under us.
Any other comments?
Yeah. So over the weekend, I also did some more research, and well, I got a news blast on my phone that announced that there's a Branford school district had passed their budget. And I read the article, and at the bottom of the article, there was some links to the board's website where they had videos of the meeting, and also a link to the Google Drive where they had the presentation for the budget, which was far more informative than the one that we were given. And also there were a number of other things in the Google Drive. And if you watch the meeting, I'll send a link to the whole board, and I'll probably post it up on my Facebook page as well. But it is astounding to watch that meeting. The amount of transparency and responsiveness and anticipated answers. Like, I didn't hear once in that meeting, I don't have that with me. I'll get back to you. You know, I was, not once in that meeting did they refer to a spreadsheet that was never actually publicly reviewed or shared and is not publicly accessible, such as we've been limited to keeping our more detailed questions on this frequently asked questions spreadsheet that has some links, and then some questions are not answered, not considered budget questions, even though they had to do with dates of hire, you know, which I think is a fair question for us to ask. If we're looking at hard cuts, we have to look at, you know, there is like the last on, first off approach. So, I think we have a lot of work to do. And, you know, the software, that's the other thing too that really stood out. And at that Board of Ed meeting, they had software that they projected and they were able to expand and drop in to various codes and review in real time. And yes, they could go down to paperclip level if they wanted to. So I had a conversation with the chair over the weekend as well, and I know that you were going to reach out to the attorney to get some clarification, because again, we had that debate over micromanaging versus just understanding, and also whether or not the board had the authority to influence the budget in a very articulated, direct fashion, meaning, no, we want to spend this much in this department and this much in that department. And it was my contention that the board does have that authority. And the question is whether or not we have the will as a body to use it, if needed, for whatever reason. So I would ask the chair if he could if you had any communication with the attorney, and if so, was it written?
I did speak to the board attorney, and he does agree that the board has broad authority over the budget, and he will be providing a written opinion to that effect. This is why we discussed that whatever number we passed tonight, that we were going, those who are willing to get together and discuss this, to continue to study the options up until the time that the town council and the RTM take up our appropriation. And the town manager has already moved our date later to allow us more time to find additional efficiencies, but also to hear updates from the state about the governor's proposal, the possibility of an additional DOD supplemental. There are various ways in which this budget is built on shifting sands. And to address Adrian's concern, I just received word today, I think Susan was going to announce it, that we received another grant, which will allow us to pick up some of the grant-funded positions. I believe what Susan had said was that the intention all along was that when the grants go away, the positions would go away unless we found other grants. And I just learned today that the federal grant for tutoring was approved. We now, I believe, have to, I don't know if it's categorical or if we have to go to the town council and RTM.
No, it's an ARP ESSER, but we have a high-dose tutoring grant. And what we tried to do here was, I heard loud and clear that the ARP ESSER was really needed to sunset. And it has, but we really have what we had in the past before the COVID. And so we have a remaining of about 20 in operations and 10 more in the high-dose tutoring grant, so about 30 other tutoring positions. And then also in Title I as well. So.
And this new grant will be able to allow us to add additional tutors over and above.
Well, that's part of the high-dose tutoring. Yeah.
So, again, this is a tight deadline to consider all of the factors. Some of the factors are still in play. And like I said, we have agreed that we are going to continue to meet, and the board certainly has full authority to change those numbers. Once we reconcile any difference that occurs due to the town council or RTM, I would submit that I would not want to be micromanaging a budget in progress, once the school year begins. But up until then, I believe, and the attorney agrees with me, that we would have the full authority to make whatever changes we would want in the budget. I did see Beverly's hand up. Did you have anything to add, Bev?
Thank you, Jay. I have to say this was a year that the budget was a little different the way it was handed out. It was handed out in sections, and I didn't particularly care for that. I'd like to have the whole budget at the same time. And I do agree with Ian that we should have had a plan for when Ken left, between when Ken left and Dave came on. We were out without a finance director. But I want to just say, let this be a learning experience for all of us. We can, my pastor uses this phrase, we can bounce back better from this. We can all work together, and we can continue, like Jen says, to look through the budget after we come up with a number. We have to have a number tonight. It's unrealistic for us to have 0. That would be devastating to the district. So we have a number, we move forward, but we can continue, like Jay is saying and Jen, we can continue to look at the budget and make changes and find cuts or efficiencies, however you want to work it. But with this experience that we've been through, we're all new. As far as working together, I knew the chemistry wasn't going to be the same as the old board because everybody has their own different agenda. But This is a good learning experience for us, so let us bounce back better and do a better job next year and all try to work together for the good of the community, the students, the staff, the taxpayers, and the students. But we have to have a number tonight.
Jay?
Matthew?
There is a difference between disagreement and discord. I don't want to lose the attainable in pursuit of the ideal. I too have expressed to Susan and to many of you my dismay at some of the process and the way this shook out. But I don't want our disagreements to be perceived by the public as if there's incompetence here, which is what I inferred from some of the comments I've heard over the last weeks and tonight. I do not think there's incompetence. I think this has been a difficult time and everybody's tried the very best they can. We will learn from it and we'll get stronger from it. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
One last comment is I agree that a zero budget would be devastating, and that is not what I'm advocating for. Again, I'm voting in opposition as a protest, and, I'm doing that, as a choice, a personal choice, as a way of trying to register the discontent that I perceived from a number of other board members, and a general, problem with, how the process played out. So I would hope that we do pass a number tonight. But I cannot agree more with Adrian's sentiment about the last minute changes. It's a lot to process because, again, we met on Friday night and we sort of came to a number and said, okay, that we can live with, that gives us wiggle room, and it could pass. And maybe it'd be accepted by the town council and RTM, maybe it wouldn't, but it was within range. And, that would allow us space to time to work and get the number down internally and come back to the town council and RTM while they're still deliberating with a better number. However, this last minute change, again, was sort of just, it's a lot to process, because that number gave us a bit of a cushion. The number we came to Friday night gave a bit of a cushion where we could still conceivably come down a good bit. I'm not sure if that cushion still exists with this number. Can we get down further? Maybe. I should hope so. But at what cost? And, we need the time to do that. So, I would, like I said, the opposition vote that I'm going to register tonight is a protest to the process. And so those of you, my colleagues on the board that have greater faith than me, I encourage you to go with that. And let's pass a number. But I'm going to do what I can over here to make sure that it's not unanimous so that no one gets the wrong impression that we're all happy with this. There is work to be done. And we need the information to do the work.
Adrian.
Yeah, so since we are just talking about this new budget now, can we talk about it? Can we talk about some of these things? And I know everyone, we don't want to run the meeting till midnight, but I feel like we should understand this a little bit because we are making a very big vote tonight, and I realize that we're going to be continuing to talk about the budget for a long time. But I personally would like to try to understand some of these numbers. Like, is that number of a teacher salary the realistic savings for next year? And once that's said, the other 6.5 teachers that we're losing, are those realistic salaries for the savings for next year? Not what they're costing us this year, but the savings for next year, because we're talking about next year's budget. So is that number accurate under reduce one teacher?
It's a retirement, and it's not going to be replaced.
Correct, but the cost to next year's budget isn't that number, right? So when we're talking about a savings, how much does a new teacher?
So we're not replacing, it's a
I'm
retirement.
just saying that we're talking about a savings from next year's budget. So how much, if we did replace that teacher, how much would it cost?
It would be probably $64,000, but
So-
we're not replacing the teacher.
Well, you say the superintendent's proposed budget is not replacing the teacher. I'm saying that I want to know what the difference to our budget is, and I see a number of $100,000 that is different than what it would actually cost to keep a position going. So if a science teacher were retiring, it costs us $65,000 in next year's budget, not $100,000 in next year's budget. And it's that times 7.5, so that turns out to be a reasonable number that we're gonna have to come up with. So we're gonna have to come up with this money sooner or later, the difference.
Can you explain it, Lori, that this is really a department that's not going to need to replace?
So, if you don't mind, Susan, so in the fiscal year '24 budget, there's $100,000, right? Can we agree on that?
Yes.
If we're not going to replace the position, it's 0 in fiscal year '25. So that $100,000 is a savings of $100,000. If she had, if the superintendent had said that we would replace the position in '25 at 60, then the savings would only be 40. But she has stated that that position would not be replaced. So it's in at 100, not coming in, so 0. The difference there is 100. So that is a true savings, assuming we don't refill the position.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. How many teachers did we have in the district before COVID, and how many teachers do we have now? Because I've heard this
Lori, do you have a
over the
number
years.
for us?
I've listened to Board of Ed meetings and said, we're not replacing a retiring teacher. So I'm just wondering, we have roughly the same amount of students, I think a little bit more actually, now than we had 5 years ago. How many teachers do we have to
We've
support
actually
those
done a better
students?
job scheduling for our kids. Rita can remember that back probably before COVID, we had a lot of smaller classes. We still have some small classes, mostly in resource room and some of the higher level, but we've really done a terrific job scheduling it, both in middle school and high school, so that the average class size is more like the 20 that the board has looked for. It's not a perfect science, but we've made a lot of headway with that. So, I feel like we've been able to, through attrition, when people have retired, we've been able to really see some benefits of some FTEs. And I give the credit to the high school and middle school administrative team, which are leaders of the district and lead teaching and learning and lead safety in their buildings and scheduling and all those things. And they've been able to do a really good job scheduling that, both schools. And so that our average class size is in line with what the board is looking for, instead of having a lot of small classes and then a few kind of medium-sized classes, so.
All right, one other question. Can any of these positions, the language in all of the grants that we have, because I don't understand all the grants, can any of these positions be pushed into grants? I'm not asking if there's space in the grant. I'm just asking if any of these positions could be covered in those grants.
Except for the high-dose tutoring grant, I don't have one now. I'm actually preparing one for DODEA 25, but we don't have it yet. That will have some tutors in it.
So,
we do have tutors in Title I grant as well. So we do have, I said, we have about 30 tutors that are in the operating budget and in grants now.
So we could, I'm just thinking to other positions that were in our budget that got pushed into grants, and I'm wondering if there's more space for that, to not lose people. And because the grants to me seem like a black box, and I don't really know what's going on inside of it.
There's a lot of them.
I know, I'd love to know what's going on
Yeah.
inside
Well,
of them.
we'll definitely spend time. so that you can see.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But I would like to know, not if there's space in the grant right now, but if any of these teachers or any of these positions can be put into a grant, and maybe we lose something else out of that grant, obviously, like when we move that one position into a grant, something else fell out of it that we're not gonna be able to pay for now. So can any of these be put into a grant?
Like I said, probably looking at the tutors, there might be some areas, but we'd have to go back and look. But we did calculate what we have so far in the grants now remaining.
And can you tell me what an aide does?
So we have different kinds of aides. We have for the preschool, for the kindergarten, for lunch aides. So looking across the district and fine tuning that, some have a couple aides in the morning and a couple aides in the afternoon. So if we can get an aide in the morning and an aide in the afternoon and spread them out, I think we're going to make it just fine. So we will be able to cover our bases with the aides that we have.
How many aides did we have before COVID?
I didn't come prepared with that answer before COVID.
I mean,
All I know is
if I
that
were to
there's
ask a
10
teacher.
less from last year
if
to
I were
this
to
year, and
ask
they're
a-
part-time.
If I were to ask a teacher that, you know, in elementary school, I'm guessing it sounds like there's a lot of aides. So if I was to ask one of those elementary school teachers, will you notice it significantly having about half the amount of aides in the school?
I would say that what we're doing is getting it back to those days before the ARPESTER where we were able to add all these positions. So we're really lining ourselves up to where we had been before COVID. That's the whole point.
All right, but that doesn't say it's that, I'm just looking at, like, the one more teacher and the 10 aides aren't in the ARPESTER. And then there's a program coordinator, not in the ARPESTER. So these are additional cuts the district is taking that aren't part of that grant that we're trying to get rid of all of. And then I have one question for Dave. Well, maybe you can answer this, Susan. And I feel like this is talked about, but we've had, I think, almost 30 hours in meetings over the budget, so I haven't absorbed everything. But when an employee is paid out of a grant, how is their health care and benefits paid?
I can have Lori answer that question.
It varies depending on the grant. So it depends. Some grants include fringe and some don't. It just depends on the individual grant and what they allow.
All right,
If we
so-
can put it in, we do put the fringe benefits in.
So
But
some of the grant positions, the benefits just fall into the big $13,000, whatever it is.
Correct.
Or $13 million, I'm sorry.
Correct.
Healthcare number.
That's correct, yes.
Susan?
Yes, Beverly?
Susan, do we have less students now than we did before COVID? Are there 243 less students now than before COVID?
Not to my knowledge, but actually during COVID, we lost a few, but then they've come back. I don't have the exact number for you, but I can get it for you.
Okay.
We did see more children homeschooled, Beverly, or who went to private school, but then have returned during COVID.
So,
Chair, can I just
I'm
make
sorry,
a
Jen.
comment?
Yep.
So, as, obviously you would love to keep everyone, but I don't want us to keep positions, move them into grants, and then if we can't get the grants renewed, we are going to impact the current administration, the current faculty that we have, because when those grants run out, and now Susan and her team has to identify cost savings in the future, now we're going to be like cutting into the meat of our administration and our district. So we need to keep that in mind. Right now, she was able, to get a grant for some of the ARPESTER, and thank goodness, because we want that. We want to be able to support that. But a year from now, 2 years from now, I don't want our administration and have our teachers nervous that their positions are going to be cut because we decided to spend an additional $1 million this year, or whatever it may be. So just always keep that in mind. What's the balance? The balance of keeping someone now, and what's the impact to the future? And can we work with what we have to be able to support the students in the same quality? And that they're receiving the best that this town can afford to pay, and what our teachers they've committed to this district, right? And all of the other support, staff. So keep that in mind as we're making a decision.
It's my understanding, Jen, that when teachers are hired under a grant, they're told that the money is available for however many years, 1, 2, 3, and they willingly take those jobs because, first of all, they get experience, and secondly, they then can get a sense of how the district works, and when they make a favorable impression on kids especially, not that you have to love your teacher, but that you definitely have to be learning from your teacher. Then they have opportunities within the district to go for more permanent positions. So it's not as bad as it may appear. And we have a really fabulous grant writer, and she's very successful. So I wouldn't worry about the grant money running out because she'll chase it down.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? I would like to make a suggestion. Did you have something?
Yeah, it took me a minute to get out the paperwork, but, I heard that the superintendent had decided to try to be more aggressive with the ARP ESSER positions. As far as, we have a list here that lists every single position that was brought in under ARP ESSER. And it totals to be about a 43 1/4 FTE, full-time equivalents. And the ranges in salary go, from, 20,000 to 122,000. And the total amount of salary, with the taxes that the district has to put in, is about 2.2 million on this list. And the additional savings or adjustments that were in this latest budget, where you amplified the ARP ESSER removals, still only comes out to be about 1.1 million.
We had already taken some of these out. Remember, we had taken some of the ARP ESSER out. I said some would go to operations and some would be taken out, and so they were removed. And then we followed up with these other items that were on ARP ESSER in addition to.
Well, one of the things that, Jen had suggested was, a blanket approach, right? Just let ARP ESSER sunset. And while I was kind of on the fence of whether or not I agreed with that approach, I did appreciate the logic as far as it being a grant and it sunsets. And then, maybe we do let it 100% just go and then rebuild from there with the other grants that we can find. But, we don't have that here. So I heard rumor that you were going to, come back with some different numbers tonight, and then I was looking forward to seeing this in more detail to see if that was the case, if we were going to make a bold move like that. But this is not that. So, still, again, also this presentation, like you said, we've had this other one with the green box on it from the previous workshops. So, you know, this presentation also is kind of troubling because it's kind of disjointed. You know, it's a little hard to follow.
Well, I think this board has paid a lot of attention to detail with this budget. We've had hours and hours of budget workshops, and we've gone line by line through the budget and then through the different areas that were recommended. And there's been a lot of discussion, so I would say that this board has worked really hard with my staff, who has worked super hard in looking at this, and none of these cuts are easy. I'm looking at many of my colleagues out there, and, you know, none of these, I mean, would we have loved to have kept all the ARP-ESSER and all that extra support? Sure, but we knew that we were dealing with other challenges where there were so many different increases, not any that any of us wanted, but through inflation, through bus contracts, through wages, one thing after the other. It was like the perfect storm this year. So we know that our town, you know, can't take all that on. So we tried to make decisions that would be, continue the good work that Groton has done with instruction, with curriculum, with providing resources to our students, providing athletics and extracurriculars and the music program. None of that has changed. So that was really the eye on the prize, that we wanted what the children had had last year. That's what we call level service, but it is coming to us at a higher cost because everything costs more these days. So.
And if I could say one more thing, Jay, and that is that it was presented tonight that as though Superintendent Austin said we're going to make kids pay for music and for sports, and she never said that. What she said is, if we do this, that's what that means. She never said we're going to do it or even suggested to do it, but she said these are the implications, that if we do that, then this is what it could result in.
But we are keeping all those programs that the kids have.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change at this point. It
Right.
depends on what happens after this.
Right.
So,
And
right.
if we did charge Superintendent Austin with coming in with a reasonable
number.
budget, and that's what she
Right.
worked hard to do.
With my
And-
team. I didn't do it alone.
Yeah.
And with you all.
Yeah. But the idea is that Superintendent Austin did what we asked her to do.
Thank you.
Just a couple points of clarity. One, I wasn't implying that there were cuts to music or arts or athletics in my comments. What I was speaking about specifically was the documented proposed cuts to summer school and to adult education, which we reversed. Second, we did not really go through the budget line by line completely. There's a lot of areas that were left unexplored despite repeated requests, and one of those in particular would be the consultants. I still have yet to receive any information on how many consultants are being paid by the district and how much they're being paid and by what means they're being paid, whether it's through a budget item or through a grant. I've asked for that information now it's been weeks, and I still have yet to receive a detailed breakdown of the consultants and what area of the budget they're in. So, just for clarity's sake. Just information missing.
Can I say something? I know Ian's been asking about going through line item, and we haven't been able to do that. I don't know what the appetite is for the board, but I would be willing to like sit down and do that, whoever else wants to join. And I would be willing to do that between now and the end of April, whenever we're supposed to present.
Right, and I do believe
It's
that,
probably not the most
I think
ideal.
we had agreed on that
Yeah,
pretty
we
much
had.
Friday, that we were going to all do that, or all of us
I thought-
eligible to do that.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I do have one other suggestion. If if we want to entertain a motion to go back to Friday's number. I mean, we can certainly put another number
Or even
up.
splitting the difference or something.
He has to complete a complete
Yeah.
board book.
Yeah.
These numbers have to all align. This is extensive work. I don't know if you realize the kind of work that we're asking one man to do, that, you know, that this whole team has done. He can't just make this stuff up and you come up with a number. They all have to line up. So we've got a budget at 7.91. I don't know, Dave, if you went back to the 9.32, how much work that would be if we could even get it done by Wednesday, because I know that you've been working on this all weekend to get it to the 7.91. But I don't know what the appetite of the council and the RTM will be for something as high as 9.32. So it's just something I think we need to all consider.
So I was trying to do a quick math, it's about another 50 entries. And quite honestly, I think we're at like 224 entries in the last week.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna have to reverse 58 of them.
Yeah.
To get back to the 9, what was it?
9.32.
So the question really is, really for me, is the book, the 181-page book?
Yep.
Or is there some subset that I can provide? Because these books are very functions, they go, you know,
Right.
I don't know, explain it, but just trying to figure out.
Well, we have to follow the
It's not
guidelines of the
24 hours
town.
now. We're down to
Yeah.
probably one work day and then, you know, half, a little more than half, something like that. So, yeah, so that would be the one thing I would say, is if there's any sort of leniency on the town's part in terms of getting them
We won't have an answer to that.
a chunk of the book versus the 181 page book. Because if I don't have to do entries in bulk instead of every single one, every single line item, that's a different game. So I don't know how to answer that other than what I said.
Just a quick side note, also one of the other things I was asking for in this process was the actual department head requests. Like I asked for that early on within the first week, and again, that's not part of the process, and that's a stark difference than what you see on the town side of the budget.
And I think we have indicated that we are open to revamping the budget process. The thing is, we're down to the wire right now, and we don't want to make a change that means that Dave won't be able to get a number to the town manager by 4:30 on Wednesday. So why don't we recess for 5 minutes and see if we can find an answer to that question. All right, so I'll call the Groton Board of Education back to order. The time is 8:51 p.m. And the motion on the floor is to approve the fiscal year 25 budget in the amount of $87,958.
58,000.
58,000, let me repeat this. To approve the fiscal year 25 budget in the amount of $87,958,484, which is a 7.91% increase over the fiscal year 24 budget.
Second.
And if there's no further discussion, I'll call all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Beverly? Those opposed?
Opposed? Thomas?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I would like to vote aye.
Okay.
That's process going on.
That's all right. It's a late night.
And any abstentions? All
I
right.
wonder if
So-
Beverly is still recessed.
She's on mute. I don't know
Is
if
she
she,
on mute?
yeah.
Beverly?
Is that a dog?
You are on mute, Beverly.
She might have walked away because we were all recessing.
Yes.
Yeah. Beverly?
I was gonna say, does anyone have her number? We'll text.
I have a parliamentary question. If there is a majority of the board that's voting in favor and Beverly is not here, when she comes back, would she be allowed to vote and have her voice recorded? If there already exists a majority for one position or the other, and a member is missing and comes back during the meeting, would he or she?
Hi, we need your vote. Yeah, we're back. We're back. I think we're tired.
Cancel that transmission.
Okay, we need you. Okay, bye.
I better know where she was.
I sent her a message.
There she is. Oh.
Hello?
Yes, Beverly. And what was
Okay.
your vote?
What are you doing? Did you
we-
move another number or
we-
what? I
no,
don't
no.
know what you're doing here.
The number that you moved, the 7.91%.
Yep, I'm voting for that.
Okay, so that's an aye. All right, so that motion passes. And that is the end of our new business action items. At this point, we will take letters, communications, and comments by board members on meeting items and any other items within their jurisdiction. Do you have anything, Beverly?
I just had a question from one of my neighbors about how to get a new bus stop, I guess. Because the bus goes right down Tyler Avenue, and his son could just walk down the block to the house, but his son has to stay on the bus another 15 minutes, and then it goes all around and up by Plant Street, and it lets him off at Plant Street. So it's not the question that he has to walk longer, it's the question that he's on the bus longer, when he could just get off on Tyler and Pennsylvania and just walk down the street. So he wants to know, what's the protocol of getting a bus stop changed, or getting a new bus stop? Or there's no protocol, you can't do it?
Make a phone call, right? Sam's got the answer.
Is this on,
Thank you,
Beth?
Sam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Ms. Washington, if you could have the parent call the secretary at the school, they will be able to forward this to the Transportation Department for action.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.
Okay. Adrian, do you have any items?
Yeah, I would just like to explain that my vote, I agree with the number, and I think that we can get there. I am obviously upset by the amount of positions we had to lose to get there, and I look forward to more discussion and hopefully bringing some of those positions back. So I just wanted to say that.
I just had a discussion with another board member, and.
I'm just going down for the letters and
I'm
communication.
so sorry.
Yeah.
I was gonna.
Ian?
Oh, can I just pass for now? I gotta, get me at the end.
Now, Andrea, any letters or
I'm so sorry.
communications? or
No,
comments?
I was gonna talk, I was gonna say that in the past, evidently there have been budget books that were that big, and they got reduced. So they're somewhere in the central office, hanging out. All right, I'll be
Okay.
quiet.
Right. Jen?
Wait.
Why- I thought you said you.
I didn't. That was something else.
Okay.
I just would like to say
Continue.
this. Thank you, Jen. So, I was able to go to the DEI concert on Friday night, a couple of weeks ago. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to see the kids perform. and Ms. Hall, I think her name is Ms. Hall. And I never got a chance to write a thank you note, but I will do that. But she also invited the 2 Martin Luther King scholars to participate and say some things at, just briefly, but it was a wonderful thing to have happen. And on Sunday at Mystic Congregational Church, Calvin McCoy has been invited to speak, and he'll be there for the 9:30 service. Thank you.
My pleasure. Jen?
Just wanted to say thank you to the administration, fellow board members, that we voted on something and that we didn't end up at 0. So thank you for all of that effort.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to express my joy at the Black History concert. It was a joyous affair. For those of you who missed it, tough luck, you missed a great show. We made some sausage tonight. It wasn't everything that I wanted. I don't think there's anybody who's totally happy, but I do want to thank the staff very much. I would hope that when we send this budget that there's a cover letter, and I would encourage the cover letter to include a thing about the lapsing fund, to encourage them to take it off their referral list where it's been sitting for years and take it up. This could make a huge difference for our district. I'd finally like to make 2 referrals to the policy committee. First, a referral on a policy for student cell phone use during instructional time. And hopefully we'll invite Clint to come to that. And the second, appropriate student use of generative AI. I mean, that's the one that I want Clint to come to, appropriate student use of generative AI. So we will discuss it in our group. If it's resonant to the group, we'll come back to a cow to see if it's resonant with you guys before actually developing a policy. And it may take some time.
Ian?
Yes, thank you. I was just checking the emails, but one email I got was about the fees for summer school and adult education from a concerned resident, but that actually predated our discussion on Friday night. I want to thank my colleague Matthew Schulman for bringing up the non-lapsing fund consistently. That was one of the things that also I campaigned on, knocking doors, but I want to give credit to my wife, Councilor Bordelon. She was the one who put that referral into the town council back when a single councilor could put a referral on the list. So I think it's a time, and also I know that Councilor McBride has publicly stated support for that. So I think it is long past due that we discuss this. A number of school districts in the state have taken up the offer on creating such a thing, and there's many different ways to do it. I did send an email out to the board and a number of the administration as well that had a lot of historical information on the non-lapsing fund. And also it had examples of other towns that have done things and how they went about doing it. And so, again, I think it is long past due that we make a strong move to get that done. It basically enables the Board of Ed to manage its budget the same way that any given household might manage their budget. So if you end up with a bit of a surplus any given year, you can put that surplus away in a reserved account that can be accessed through a certain process for certain items, and it would allow the Board of Ed to better plan for CIP projects and also be ready to handle contingencies and emergencies that are maybe unanticipated. So it creates a buffer, and I believe it could be upwards of 3% of the annual budget could be accumulated in that reserve fund. Which, of course, if you look at our budget, 3% would be a very significant number. So, again, I think, I look forward to working with this board on that issue and, pushing the town council to really, work together on this and allow us to manage our finances in a far more proactive manner. Thank you.
Jay,
Thank you.
may I add one comment on that very briefly? I'm straying into operations, dangerous territory, but if the superintendent thinks it would be useful, perhaps she could turn to CABE, CAPS, members of this board, and any other staff that she has to put together an educational packet on lapsing fund so that when the council takes something up, all of the council members have a book in front of them to show that it is real, it does exist, and it does work.
I would counter on that to say that actually that's something that we as a policy committee could do as well, since it is a policy-driven, it's at first and foremost is founded in policy before it dictates any sort of financial arrangements. You have to have the policy documents in place. And in order to write that up, there's a lot of policy documents we'd have to review. And I'm basically doing that because I would like to be involved in putting together a package. If we're going to put together an informational package, I've already done a lot of research on this in support of my wife when she was bringing the referral forward for the council many years ago. And then also in preparation for my campaign last fall, did more research, and then once elected, I did even more research. So I do already have a bank of information, and I'd be glad to work with the superintendent and anyone else to put a package together
And I
to advocate.
appreciate the help, so thank you.
And that's definitely a referral item that we should take up. So I would just like to say a couple of things. Number one, I thoroughly enjoyed the concert at Fitch during Black History Month. Dr. Ackerman actually didn't mention that she was a speaker there, and donations were accepted toward the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Fund.
Thank you, thank you.
And I also want to say that I know this wasn't the smoothest process. I take responsibility as a new chair for perhaps not shepherding this process as well as it could have been. We did spend over 24 hours in meetings. We had multiple information requests. We worked our way through as much as we could, but more importantly, we have committed as a board to continue to meet and find areas that where we can find efficiencies or adjustments before this goes before the town bodies. And so tonight is not a destination, it's another way along the journey. But I appreciate all of the hard work of all of the members for attending all those meetings and bringing in their ideas. And if any criticism falls upon the board for this process, it falls upon me, and I take full responsibility for that. And I thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.